Our Crossroads this year is entitled Biomanufacturing, Robotics, and 4D Printing, the next decade of disruptive innovation. And consistent with the theme that we have pursued with this particular event, we really seek to convene leaders from industry to focus on the crossroads of business strategy and supply chain management. So where the work that we do in the realm of supply chain management has impact on businesses. Today we're looking at particularly into the future and building off of the excellent work that has come from researchers within MIT. We did this back in 2011, and we often have people from industry, but today we said we're going to go and just use our researchers here. So I think it'll be a really exciting and interesting perspective. And we're bringing together a number of great researchers, and I'll talk a little bit about this. This event is part of a series of events that we run for our partners. Now, our partners, we use that term specifically to refer to companies that work together with us. And through our outreach program that's called the Supply Chain Exchange. It's really a series of companies that are either shippers or carriers or third-party providers that all work together in the supply chain management domain with the idea to try to advance the industry. And we do that together by conducting research, holding outreach events like this, and then educating our students and then the executives from these firms. Our plan for today is that I invite you to take your folders out. You'll see the schedule. I just want to very quickly touch on this. We'll start with in 6 minutes, I will finish, and I will then do an introduction of our first speaker, and that will be Professor Suzanne Berger. And Suzanne's going to be talking about some of the findings that have come from a major research study that was undertaken and be talking about the future of manufacturing and innovation. After Professor Berger speaks, we'll have Professor Sam Madden talk about big data. Now, I know everybody's heard about big data and we're talking about it, but Sam's going to be talking about it from his own perspective as the director of the MIT Big Data Initiative. We'll take a break, and then we'll go to Dr. Abel Sanchez. And Dr. Sanchez will talk about cybersecurity, and he's been involved, of course, with a number of the breaches recently. He's been a guy who's been frequently quoted, and because he's a pretty knowledgeable fellow in that domain. We'll break for lunch. Now, lunch, we're going to convene, will be served out in the foyer, and then it's really informal seating, which means that you'll need to find a place either out there or one of the classrooms. Around here, there's a lot of places for you to perch. Find a colleague and sit down. You'll be able to have a break. We'll give you an hour and 15 minutes for that, which ought to be enough. And we'll convene immediately after lunch with Professor Julie Shah. And Julie's going to talk about robots working alongside humans. Now, I know the idea of robots have been around for a while, but the concept of them actually working in an environment, I won't say hand to pincer, but possibly thinking about that it's a departure from the way we typically think of production environments. Immediately after Professor Shah, we're going to have Skylar Tibbetts talk about 4D printing and self-assembly. Now, I think that people's eyes are going to be popping. If you haven't seen what Skylar Tibbetts is working on, it'll be quite interesting. But again, continuing along the theme of issues and technologies that are affecting supply chains today and will affect them in the future. We'll take a break, and then we'll finish up with Dr. Sanjay Sharma, who, for those of you might remember, was one of the leaders in the realm of RFID and has since gone on to take over be the leader of digital learning at MIT. And he's going to talk about online learning, which is something that's going to affect all of us, maybe personally, but also within our organizations. So that gives you a pretty broad range of subject matter that I think will provide for an interesting discussion and some things that are going to affect your companies perhaps today, tomorrow, and certainly in the future. Now let me take a few moments to just talk about a few things. Let me introduce a couple of CTL folks. First, let me start with Professor Yossi Sheffi. He's the director of the center. I'm the deputy. He's the director. I got to keep that straight. Or it might be my last day. Who knows? Let me see who else. I see Dr. Bruce Arnson, who's the executive director of our SCM program, our graduate degree program. Who else is here? Dr. Edgar Blanco, who is the executive director of our Scale Center in Latin America. Did I get that right, Edgar? Dr. Chris Kaplis, who's the executive director of the Center for Transportation and Logistics. Who else is here? Everybody else outside? Anybody else from the center? Okay. Of course, today there'll be a handful of other folks from our center who will be here working with us, and hopefully you get a chance to meet some of them. Important safety review. So there are a number of ways in the event of an emergency, there's a number of exits. There's an exit out back this door, and you will follow the corridor around and follow the exit signs to the stairwell going down. Many of you will exit using the front door here, and as you exit the front, this door to my left, you'll turn either to the right, and about 50 yards on your left there will be an exit sign and a stairwell that'll take you out the building, or you can turn to the left, and then there will be a stairwell about 20 yards and just to your right. For restrooms, the men's and ladies' room, you'll exit the door to your left here, and then you'll turn left. The men will turn right at the end of the corridor. The ladies will turn left. If you need assistance for handling any kind of business support, Nancy and Eric will be out in the corridor, and they'll be able to provide you assistance if you need a place to make a phone call, what have you. Please let them know. For those of you who have devices that you want to get access to the internet, you should be able to open up a browser using the MIT Guest Network. And those of you who are departing, the best place to get a taxi cab is over to Marriott. It's a 4-minute walk, and they'll take you wherever you want. Okay, anybody have questions? If you do, now's a good time to ask them.